All right. So good morning, boys and girls out there. We are so excited for our final day of Hispanic Heritage Career Speaker event. My name is Erica Hen, and I'm the Director of Elementary Programs for Junior Achievement of the Palm Beaches and Treasure Coast. And I'm really excited to bring to you a very special member of the community. Meet Mr. Loureiro. Mr. Loureiro, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Awesome. Good, good. So we're going to go ahead and get started right away with our questions because we don't have a lot of time. And I want to make sure that we allow time at the end for questions from the audience. So, Mr. Loureiro, we want to know, these are the questions from the boys and girls that are out there. When you were younger, can you tell us a little bit about your family, growing up, and what you wanted to be when you were a kid?
Sure. So good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here and spend some time with you. So growing up, I grew up in New York. My parents are from Uruguay in South America. And it was interesting to grow up because it felt a lot of times like I was in two worlds. There was the world I was at home, where there was a lot of Spanish being spoken in the house, a lot of Spanish food and stuff like that. And then I would go over to school, and it would be different, right? Everybody was speaking English, and there was different customs and different culture. And as I grew older, I really come to appreciate that because it gave me exposure to more languages, more customs, and I'm happy to be bilingual at this age, and I'm hoping I can help my kids grow to be the same. What I wanted to be when I was little is, do any of you guys know what Top Gun is, the movie Top Gun? Have you ever seen it? Okay, so when I was your age, 5th grade, right, 1984, I was probably about your age, a movie came out called Top Gun, which was about fighter planes and fighter jets. And there were these really cool pilots. And all I wanted to do was be a Top Gun pilot. And I wanted to be on fighter jets, and it was really great until we got on an airplane to go to South America, and I got really nauseous on the whole flight. And my mom said, maybe being a fighter pilot isn't the best idea. So I had to start thinking about new things to do.
So where did you go to school?
When I was for college, or?
Yep, all throughout time. So you grew up in New York originally. So did you go to elementary and high school up in New York?
Yeah, so I went to school in New York. I went to Jefferson Elementary, then Albert Leonard. And then I worked really hard in school, especially in middle school. And I graded into a private school. And so they started to send a bus for me based on my grades. I was able to go to the school, and I got a scholarship to go to school there. And that was really important because it helped teach me that no matter what age you are, what you do matters. And how hard you work matters. And I had a lot of friends that would say, well, I'll work hard when I get older, or I'll get focused when I'll get older, or I'll do better in school, once I go into college. And, I had a really great older sister who was always on me about doing my homework and stuff. And it was amazing to realize that, even a little bit older than you, right? 6th, 7th, 8th grade, the work I was doing in school actually allowed me to go to this really great private school that I never would have gone to without a scholarship. And then that private school, led me to then go to Fordham University, which was where I went to college, and I studied economics, and I went on to grad school. But it was really great. And that's a good thing for you guys to think about now is, even as kids, what you do matters, right? And how hard you work and the habits you're building now, it's who you're going to be in the future, right? You don't magically become someone else when you turn 14 or 18 or 25, right? Wherever you go, there you are. And you're building towards the person you want to be in the future today. So when you think about how you're spending your time and what you spend your time on, that's a good indication of who you're going to become. So if you take a look at it that way, are you spending your time on the right things, or would you want to maybe make some adjustments?
What great words of advice here. We're all learning lots of lessons. These are great lessons for both children and adults too. I'm taking notes as we go. So you wanted to be a fighter pilot. That didn't work out. I get it. And then you went to college, some great universities and now you work for TIA. Can you tell us a little bit about your current position and what you do?
Sure. So I work in wealth management at TIA, and one of the reasons why I went into wealth management, right? And it's why you do something and your why is really important as you figure out your career. And my why is that when I was a kid, my parents didn't really speak English, so they would have me on the phone with the banks, and whenever somebody would call, they'd be like, Alfonso, can you please handle this? Can you please handle that? So I got exposed to a lot of these conversations already in middle school and high school. And what I learned was that my parents worked really hard, right? My dad was a machinist, my mom cleaned houses, and they worked, it felt like 24 hours a day, but they didn't know anything about investments, right? They didn't know anything about saving for the future. They didn't know anything about mortgages or any of that stuff. So because they didn't know how to use the financial instruments and tools that exist, they weren't able to increase how much money they had in the ways that successful people in this country do. And as I got older and I started to understand what we weren't doing right as a family, I said, you know what, let me go learn how to do this. So coming out of college, I became a financial advisor, and I was one for about 12 years. And I helped a lot of people save for retirement, buy homes. I helped them retire. I helped them, do things for their children. And about 12 years in, my company promoted me, and they promoted me again into the job I'm in now, where I oversee the distribution of products across the entire country. So whenever we create a new product, they come to me and I figure out how we're going to send it out so that we can get it into the hands of every client that we have in the country.
What an important job you have, because you really help families be prepared and be successful and be comfortable for their future. That's really amazing. So we're curious to know, you speak about how it's important to know what your why is, but what motivates you to work towards your goal? It's clear that you don't sit back and say, you know what, this is good enough, I'm done, and I'm just going to stay here. It seems like you really have this momentum moving forward, but what motivates you to keep working towards your goals?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's a few things. One is the sacrifice my parents made coming to this country and everything they did so that I would have opportunities that they didn't have or wouldn't have had if they had stayed where they were. So I always think, if I always think about how hard they worked, and I always say, Al, like, you've got to work at least that hard, right? So that you can honor the sacrifices that they made for you. And that's very important to me. The other thing is that because I know the way I feel about what my parents did for me, I know that my children are going to do what I do, not what I say. And I want my children to see me living the type of life that I would be happy to see them living. So, for them to be people that work hard, that are honest, that are lifelong learners, that are taking care of their bodies, being healthy and exercising. So the example I set for them is also an important part of my why. And then more broadly for the Latino community and the involvement I've had with Junior Achievement and some other organizations, every time I have a chance to help somebody that reminds me of me, and you all remind me of me when I was younger, right? Trying to figure out what to do, how to get better, how to be somebody. Every time I have a chance to help somebody and I see them grow and take those next steps, I don't know if there's a better feeling in the world than helping someone become everything that they can be and helping them live their dreams. So as much as you want to get out there and, make sure you're living your dream, and you should, contributing and helping others is one of the most powerful things you can do for the community and for yourself.
How powerful. Absolutely. Doesn't it just feel good in your heart when you're helping others?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't sound like your job's easy, though. It sounds like you have a very, very important job and a big responsibility to the families and communities that you work with. What is one of your biggest challenges when it comes to your career?
Sure. I'd say one of the hardest things is figuring out what's most important. So, there's a saying that if everything's important, nothing's important, right? So being able to narrow down what's the most important thing for me to do today, right? What are the most important things that I should be focusing on? I think to me is probably the hardest thing, because everything feels important. And when you're talking to other people, whatever it is they want is the most important thing to them. So they can make you feel like it's the most important thing to you. And when you're running a business or trying to make good decisions for your team, and being a good steward for the company, you're always faced with understanding what are the most important priorities and where do I need to spend my time. And that takes up a lot of time because there was this old story I read. Do you guys know who Neil Armstrong is? Have you guys read about the moon, right? And the moon landings? I see somebody with their hand up. Good. So Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon, and they asked him, they said, when you were going to the moon, were you really scared that you might land on the moon like a mile to the left or a mile to the right? Were you worried about where you'd land? And he said, not really, because for the most part, we felt pretty good about that general area. So, missing by a little bit when we landed wasn't a big deal. What we were most worried about was takeoff. Because when you take off, if you're off by even 1 degree, right, by 1 inch, when you take off, that 1 inch, it gets worse and worse and worse as you go into outer space. And we would have missed the moon completely, and we never would have come back. And that's why it's so important that the beginning of your work and what you decide to work on in the very beginning is where you need to make sure you're spending time so that you're working on the right things.
Absolutely. I can definitely understand the importance of prioritizing. Our lives can get very, very busy, but making sure that we prioritize the things that are most important to us, and then starting off on the right foot so we can land on the moon, right? Or reach the stars if we don't quite get to the moon. Excellent. So you spoke about what your biggest challenge is. What is the most rewarding aspect of your career? Or do you even have a day or a moment that really stands out to you where you're like, why? This is my why. This is why I do what it is that I do.
Sure. That's a really good question. There's probably a couple. I'd say when I work directly with clients, it was, when they would say, every time when you were able to help them retire, I've seen people just start crying, when like you do the plan for them and you say, look, based on the changes we made 5 years ago, we were able to meet your targets and you don't have to work anymore, right? And you can retire now. And, at TIA, creating, lifelong financial wellness is really important in the organization. It's what we focus on, is creating financial wellness for our clients and lifetime income, right? So that when you retire, how do you replace that paycheck? And making sure that we're out there and we're able to help people live those comfortable retirements so they can do the things that they want to do. So I'd say that's one of the big things. In my current role, the other thing is leading a team. And when you're a leader, it's about putting your team first, right? And it's about helping them develop and helping them become the best versions of themselves that they can be. Have you guys ever seen Kung Fu Panda 2? You ever seen a movie Kung Fu Panda 2? Okay, so you remember in Kung Fu Panda 2, right? When Po goes to meet the pandas to train them, what does Po do? He tries to turn all the pandas into him, right? And what does he learn? All the pandas are different. They can't make them all into Po, right? So Po became a better leader when he realized, what I need to do is help you become the best version of yourself, not become me. And I think you become a great leader when you realize that you're not trying to turn your team into you. You're trying to help them become the best version of themselves. And in the movie, he helps the pandas do that and they win. And I think in my career, every time I've been able to help somebody on my team do that and develop, and when they give you that thanks for doing that for them, that certainly fills you up with a lot of happiness and pride.
Well, it's clear that you certainly lead with a big heart. And I'm sure that your heart is full once you're able to feel the joy of your clients when they're able to reach that wellness. I love how you described it that way, because so often we think of wellness of just medically, right, with our health, but there really is a lot of other components that help us get overall wellness as well. And I'm sure as a leader, your team really, really appreciates that you're helping to develop their individual strengths to be the best that they can be. Excellent. So our next question is, what are your words? And you've already had a lot of words of wisdom for future generations, but your advice for our boys and girls out there. what would it be?
Sure. I'd say 2 words, repetition and reflection, right? If you want to become great at something, right, repetition is really important, right? You got to get after it and get after it and get after it, even if it's hard for you to understand, right? If you keep trying, at some point, your mind says, okay, I've got to figure this out, right? So, you keep coming back and you keep coming back, and you can break through. Even if something's really hard, if you keep trying, eventually you will break through, right? And the other part is reflection. So once you do things, don't always just go to the next thing right away, right? But stop and say, okay, how did it go, right? So something I do with my team a lot are called after action reviews. So when we travel, at the end of the week, they send me a report where it says, what did you intend to do this week? What actually happened? Why was there a difference? And what did you learn? And it's amazing because they often, when in the beginning they got annoyed. They're like, oh, I've got to do a report. But now they're always like, I'm so glad we do these because it's making me reflect on what's happening. And then it's helping me plan better for the future. So I'd say if you take away 2 words, or the way I view things, it's repetition and reflection.
Okay. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. We can't get better unless we look at what we're doing currently to see how we can improve and get even better, right? All right, so I'm going to open it up to the audience now. I want to see if there's any questions from the audience. And while they think about their question and maybe get it into the chat box, I have a question for you. You speak so highly of your parents and the sacrifices that they made when they left Uruguay and came here, and how you really use this as part of an example for your own children. What are some ways that you and your family continue to honor and celebrate your Hispanic heritage?
Oh, sure. Lots of ways. So food is a big one. So on the 29th of every month, we eat gnocchi. And that's a big tradition, in Uruguay. And
is that like potato pasta?
Yeah, yes, potato pasta, yeah. And that actually comes from, so there was Italian settlers in Uruguay a long time ago, and it has to do with the 29th of the month. By then, like kind of what was left in the house, right? And so, that was what you used to kind of get through until payday came, right? Which was usually the 30th. And what you do is you put a coin underneath your bowl, and that coin is supposed to bring you good luck, and good fortune, for the next month. So we do that the 29th of every month.
You put the coin under the bowl?
Yeah.
I'm going to start this tradition. I love gnocchi, and I love the idea of this.
Yeah, you can't miss, And so I'd say that's a really popular way. Music, right, is something that, flamenco music was really popular in Uruguay, like Gypsy Kings and stuff like that. So we do that. There's a card game called Conga, which I don't know if any of you guys know it, but that's a game that I grew up playing with my mom and my dad. So there's plenty of nights where we've kind of got the Gypsy Kings on, we're playing Conga, and my favorite food, milanesas, which is something my mom used to make us when we were kids, which for you, it's almost like a veal cutlet or a chicken cutlet, right? Very popular in Uruguay. So there's a lot of that, and that's how we tend to celebrate. And of course, soccer. Uruguay is a small country. It's about 3 million people, and we're routinely ranked in the top 10 to 12 countries in the world for soccer, which is a big accomplishment for such a small country. And it's because soccer is just life.
You don't care so much about soccer, though, right? That's not really your thing?
Nah, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Do you want to maybe tell our audience a little bit about your involvement with your coaching?
Sure. So I've been coaching my boys since they were about 4 years old. I have twin boys that are 10 now. And as I was coaching them, I started to pursue licenses, right? So that I could be a better coach and better understand them. And I got into coaching their teams and different rec teams that they're on. And then my daughter started to play soccer, so I coached her team. Then my youngest son plays soccer, so I'm coaching his team. And along the way, I met a Brazilian coach who coached for universities here, and he had an academy, a coaching academy that I went through with him, where you could get different licenses. And to get the ultimate license, I have to go to Brazil for a month. So that's hard to manage. But up until there, I've done all of his licensing, and it's really great. I've learned a ton. And the best part is the community that you build. And because you coach so many of these kids, and what's really neat is you could coach a kid when he's 4, 5, 6 years old. He'll see you 3 years later and you're still Coach Al. And it's one of the greatest feelings when these kids they remember you and what you did for them. And you're always going to be Coach Al to them. And I think volunteering and participating in your community is one of the greatest things you could ever do.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Ms. Converse's class, before we wrap this up, did you have any questions that you would like to ask? I think that we're good there. All right. So
did he raise his hand, the little guy with the safety patrol?
You can unmute. I believe that you might be muted.
Sorry about that. I was trying to type in the chat.
No problem.
Go ahead, Eliza.
Have you ever met Ronaldo?
Have I ever met Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish. No, but you know what's really cool? Do you know who Real Madrid is?
Yeah.
The soccer team? So my boys were picked to play at Real Madrid this summer in a tournament. So I actually flew with them to Spain, and we were in Madrid for 2 weeks, and they played on all the fields that Ronaldo played on. So they got to go to all the places at Real Madrid, all the fields. They played there. They even actually got to play where the Spanish national team plays. So even though sometimes you don't always get to meet your heroes, you get to live like your heroes for a little while, which is also really neat. So definitely on my bucket list to meet him someday. But very cool to have the chance to go play in Real Madrid.
Where do you coach though? Like where do you
coach?
Where do I coach? So I coach in Palm Beach Gardens. There's a club here called the Palm Beach Gardens Predators. So I coach there right now. I'm coaching my youngest son. He's 5, so I'm coaching U6 soccer right now for him. My twins, now they play travel, so they've graduated from dad. And my daughter also now plays travel. So they've left me. All I have left is my little guy.
Mr. Loureiro, I was thinking that there must be so much that you do your everyday work life that you also bring onto the field, the soccer field as well. And I can't help but to think those 2 words that I'm left with, right? Repetition and reflection. It could work in our business sense, right? In our work ethic, but also in whatever you pursue, whether it be soccer or art or music or theater or baseball or whatever your interests are, right? Those 2 words, repetition and reflection. Keep those words because they're going to help you to be successful here in life. All right. So we're going to wrap this up now because our time is getting close here. Speaking of community, you spoke a bit about how important the community is and how a community needs to come together to support its citizens. We have 2 gift cards that we're raffling off from Don Ramon Restaurant on Dixie Highway. So Dina has been a great supporter of this initiative, and she's donating for our teachers. So we already gave away 2 earlier in the week, and we have 2 to draw today because I forgot to do it yesterday. So our winner is Sharon Valmarsky from Lantana Elementary. So congratulations to Miss Valmarsky. And then our second winner is, let's see, we have Ulissa Urania from Liberty Park Elementary. We actually broadcasted live from there earlier in the week. Congratulations to our winners. Mr. Loureiro, I can't thank you enough. It is so important that we come together as a community and work with our boys and girls to help them understand Hispanic heritage, your stories, your family, and everything that they've done to help you be successful. And we thank you for sharing your story with our boys and girls.
Thank you so much for the time this morning. This was wonderful. I got more out of this than you guys did, I'm sure. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Coach Al. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.